Have you ever been close to a woman, really close, and felt like something was almost there, almost electric, and then somehow it just slipped away? You didn't do anything wrong. You were kind. You were present. You even made her laugh. And yet somewhere between that first moment of connection and the next time you saw her, something shifted. She felt different, more distant. And you couldn't name what changed because nothing obvious happened. You just lost her. And the worst part is you've been trying to figure out why ever since. I've been there. And so have most of the men watching this right now. I'm your guide here at The Gentle Mind, where we uncover the real psychology behind desire, the kind of knowledge that was never handed to you but should have been. And today, we're going deep. Because I want to talk about something specific, something precise. One type of touch, not a move, not a trick, but a calibrated moment of physical connection that can shift the emotional atmosphere between you and a mature woman almost instantly. And I'll warn you now, the final piece I'm going to share is incredibly powerful. It can change everything fast, and almost no one uses it correctly. So let's begin where it actually starts. Not with your hands, with your mind. Here's what nobody taught you about attraction in a mature woman. She is not operating the way a younger woman operates. She's been through enough to know when something feels real and when it doesn't. She's not scanning you for how good you look or how smooth your words are. She's scanning you for something far deeper. She's reading your energy, your consistency, your intention, and she is extraordinarily good at it, which means the surface level stuff, the rehearsed lines, the calculated gestures, they don't land. They bounce off, and she moves on. This was never your fault. Nobody taught you this. The problem was never you as a man. The problem was sequencing. You may have gone physical too soon or not soon enough. You may have touched without anchoring. You may have reached for her hand while her nervous system was still deciding whether you were safe. That's not a character flaw. That's a calibration error. And calibration can be learned. Let me give you the framework first, because understanding this changes the way you see everything. Evolutionary psychology tells us that a woman's attraction system is built around safety and stimulation, in that order. Before she can feel desire, she needs to feel regulated. Her nervous system has to feel that you're grounded, that you're not desperate, that you're not performing. Once that safety baseline is established, stimulation, emotional, intellectual, and eventually physical, becomes possible. And that's when attraction ignites. That sequence matters more than anything else you could do. Safety first, then spark. Now let's talk about what actually creates that sequence. And here's where the real education begins. The first trigger is masculine presence. Not your height, not your wardrobe, your energy. A grounded man doesn't fidget with his words to fill silence. He doesn't scan the room nervously when he's with her. He's here, fully. When you are completely present with a woman, not distracted, not performing, just genuinely rooted in the moment, she feels it in her body. It calms something in her. Mature women especially are magnetized by stillness. They've spent enough time around anxious energy to know how rare a calm, grounded man actually is. Presence is not passive. It's the first act of attraction. The second trigger is emotional challenge, not games, polarity. Attraction requires a gap, something to lean into, something slightly uncertain. When you agree with everything she says, mirror every feeling she has, become completely emotionally available the moment she glances at you, the gap disappears. And with it, the tension that makes desire possible. A light, warm, genuine tease. Something that says you see her clearly, maybe more clearly than she expects. Creates a small charge, like static. She feels it. She thinks about it later. You don't need to be cold or withholding. You just need to have a quiet confidence that doesn't need her approval to feel complete. That's the challenge. That's the polarity. The third trigger is selective attention. Have a full life, not as a tactic, as a truth. When a man is genuinely invested in his purpose, his friendships, his growth, his attention becomes rare, and rare things feel valuable. A mature woman doesn't want a man whose world revolves around her from day one. She wants a man who chooses to include her in a life that's already worth living. Your scarcity isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to replace. There's a difference, and she knows it. If this is making sense so far, hit subscribe and join the Gentle Mind community right now. It helps more men learn what they were never taught. And there's a lot more coming. The fourth trigger is intentional listening. This one is quiet, but it hits deep. When you remember something small she mentioned, a name, a worry, a preference, something she almost said in passing, and you bring it back into conversation later, something happens inside her. She feels seen, not just heard, seen. Most men listen to respond. You're going to listen to understand. You're going to recall the details she didn't expect you to remember. And in doing so, you communicate something that no amount of physical attraction can shortcut. You are paying attention to her specifically, not to women in general, to her. That's emotional connection. And for a mature woman, it's deeply disarming. The fifth trigger is calibrated vulnerability. Here's what men get wrong about this one. They either share nothing, wall up, stay guarded, perform strength, or they overshare too early, downloading emotional weight onto a woman who barely knows them yet. Neither works. Calibrated vulnerability is different. It's choosing one real thing, a genuine admission, a quiet truth about yourself, a moment where you showed imperfection, and offering it calmly, without drama, without needing her to fix it. Just sharing it. Like handing someone a small, honest piece of yourself. When you do this well, she doesn't see weakness. She sees depth. And depth in a man is rare enough to be addictive. Now, the sixth trigger. This is where we get to the touch. And I need you to understand something before we go here, because this is everything. Touch in a mature woman's world is not a move. It's a language. And like any language, it has to be spoken at the right time, in the right place, with the right intention. Or it means nothing, or worse, it means the wrong thing. The touch that triggers deeper attraction is gradual, light, and anchored in a natural moment. It's not choreographed. It happens when you're both laughing and your hand briefly rests on her forearm. When you guide her gently through a doorway with just the lightest suggestion of your hand at the small of her back. When you reach over and touch her hand for a moment while making a point you care about. That's it. Nothing dramatic, but what happens neurologically is significant. Appropriate gentle touch releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It creates a physiological association between your presence and warmth. Her nervous system begins to connect you with safety and comfort. And when that happens alongside stimulation and presence, attraction deepens. Not because you made a move, because you created a moment she felt something in. The key word is gradual. You start small. You watch how she responds. If she leans slightly toward the touch, lingers, softens, you've landed. If she stiffens or pulls back even fractionally, you ease off without comment, without awkwardness. The ease with which you read and respect that signal tells her more about you than the touch itself ever could. Respectful, calibrated, intentional. That is the touch that changes things. And now the seventh trigger, the one I warned you about. Controlled unpredictability. Dopamine, the neurochemical of wanting, of seeking, of craving, is activated by uncertainty, not anxiety, uncertainty. When you are somewhat consistent but occasionally surprising, when you bring something unexpected into the dynamic, when you don't always respond the way she predicts, her brain lights up. She thinks about you. She finds herself wondering. And wondering is the beginning of desire's loop running on its own. You don't need to be erratic or confusing. Just don't be completely readable. Keep a little of yourself back. Be the man who surprises her calmly, occasionally, genuinely. That's the trigger almost no one uses correctly. And now you understand why it works. Here's what I want you to sit with as this ends. You didn't come here to learn tricks. Tricks don't work on mature women. They see through them instantly. You came here to understand people. Specifically, to understand what creates genuine connection and desire at a level deeper than surface behavior. And that's what you now have. A map, not a script. A real understanding of how attraction actually moves. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be intentional. You need to be present. You need to listen and touch with care and stay grounded in who you are while remaining genuinely curious about who she is. That's not manipulation. That's emotional intelligence. And it is the most attractive thing a man can bring into any room. Use what you've learned here with respect. Use it with patience. And trust that the man who understands this quietly, the one who doesn't broadcast it but simply lives it, is the man she doesn't want to lose. You just leveled up, and she'll feel it before you even say a word. If you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming the man women genuinely desire, subscribe to The Gentle Mind right now. Turn on notifications, because the next one will shift your reality again.